Hey, it's Ben from the Warehouse Underground podcast. Running out of space in your facility. It is one of the worst things that can happen. Completely slows down your op. But the customer doesn't care. That's your problem, right? But it doesn't have to be. There is a solution out there that can be a shelter in the storm until it blows over. And that can come from Warehouse on Wheels. They deliver on-demand storage trailers when you need them that flex with your operation. And with locations all across North America, there's a very good chance that they can help you too. No long-term leases for a new facility, no delays, no overpaying for space you don't need, no CapEx, just simple, smart storage delivered right to your door. So don't let your dock and your aisles become jam-packed with pallets wrecking your operation. No, let WOW be your side storage solution while you go back to focusing on mainline operations. Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to episode number 31 at the Warehouse Underground podcast, Real Talk, for warehouse, DC, and FC professionals of all levels around the globe. I'm Ben, the host of the show, and joining me on the show today, the one and only Mack Story. He's the founder of Blue Collar Leadership, helping leaders engage the front line to improve the bottom line. Now, at its core, Blue Collar Leadership is all about educating, mentoring, developing, and engaging people that are working in the blue collar world, because Mack came from that. Now, he has published many books. He has online courses that he has created. He runs his own podcast, which I've listened to, which is excellent. And he travels around the country speaking at events and companies and organizations that want to help optimize and develop and truly mentor their blue collar labor force. But on both sides of the coin, which we'll talk to him a little bit about that in the show, I appreciate what he's doing because it's very gritty. It does not have corporate jargon. It's how real people talk, how real people think about things, and how real people feel. And I appreciate that because in the warehousing world, as you know, the majority, the lion's share of the labor force is frontline employees. Yeah, we got managers and leaders, but the biggest percentage of the people out there are frontline hourly employees. And I really care about them a lot, as I know Mack does as well. So I'm really excited to chat with him about his history and his journey and all things that Blue Collar Leadership is doing and what it stands for. Should be a really great discussion. And so with that, I'll bring him on the stage. Mack, my friend, thank you very much for coming on the Warehouse Underground podcast. How are you today, sir?
Thank you, Ben. I'm doing well, man. That was quite an intro I got to live up to now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like you deserve it though, Mack. I mean, before I do any show with a guest, I always do my research on their background and what they say and what they do. And you can usually tell when people are very genuine and authentic. You know what I mean? And you come off as a person that's very genuine and authentic, which I really respect. And so you feel like you definitely earned that interest. So thanks again for coming on the show. So I talked a little bit about it in the intro with, your creation of Blue Collar Leadership, what it is, but what was the original thought process behind it? I know you came from the manufacturing industry, you have 11,000 hours in lean and that type of thing. So you come from the ranks, but what was the genesis behind this creation and how did it all get rolling in the beginning?
Yeah, so like you just mentioned, I was in manufacturing actually the first 20 years of my career from 1988 to 2008, and then I started my own lean manufacturing consulting business at that time. Did that from 2008 to 2012. And then I started doing what I'm doing now in 2012. So the reason I'm telling you that little time frame there is 20 years into my career, when I resigned and started my consulting business, I had worked at multi-billion-dollar global companies, big outfits. And first 10 years I was entry-level factory worker, and then I worked my way up through management. And when I resigned, I was a lean manager and quality manager for our facility, supporting other plant managers around the country and in Mexico. And I'll tell you all that to say, during those 20 years, no leader ever invested one penny or 1 minute introducing me to the type of content that I kind of discovered by accident. A frontline quality technician actually took my iPod in 2005, put a lot of music on there for me off of his friend's dad's computer. And when he brought it back, he said, "Hey man, I put a business book on there for you too." And I said, "What was that, Zach?"
Uh,
He said, "Seven Habits of Highly Effective People." And
right on.
I said, "Is it any good?" He said, "I don't know. I ain't never listened to it." And he said, "But my friend's dad, who had the computer, talked about it all the time." And I didn't know it. I didn't even listen to it though for 3 years till I was starting my own business. I'm driving around and listen to my music, and a guy starts talking after one song went off, and I was like, "What is that?" And I had forgot about it. Looked at the screen, I had my iPod plugged into my stereo, and this was 2008, so I had it, plugged in there, and looked at the screen. It said the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I said, "Oh, that's that business book Zach gave me." And
Yeah.
I'm in business. I ain't got any business. Maybe I'll listen to it. And that was 17 years ago, Ben, and I've been reading every day since then. Reading, watching podcast, watching videos, podcasts. But I like to read. I like to read real books. I read a lot of ebooks and listen to audio books a lot, and in the past. But anyway, when I discovered it and I got into it, and I only had a 1 hour highlights, and I didn't know there was anything in that other than that in the world for months. And I just listened to it over and over and think about it. And it was, 1 hour of the highlights of the 7 habits. But I transformed my life with those. I probably could talk about the 7 habits better than Dr. Covey
Yeah.
wrote the book, because, he didn't change his life with that book, but I did.
It's an awesome book. And sometimes I know exactly what you're talking about, because sometimes in your life, the moment you hear something in a way that you have never heard before, somebody's slant or somebody's take on something, sometimes it's just like the light bulb goes off, the epiphany happens, and you're never the same again. And you can always point back to that moment in time when that happened. It sounds like you had that with that book. So that's cool. I have read that book. It's incredible. A lot of people have, but it's a very good book if you
Yeah.
have not. If you've
Yeah,
not
I've read it many times since then. Once I discovered there was a book and there was more than a 1 hour audio, the whole book was like about 13 hours on audio. But as I got into it, and later I started doing some going to seminars and stuff like that. I know you want to mention something about John Maxwell later, and I won't get too deep into it here. But when I went to that first conference with John Maxwell, I realized most of the people in the room with me were white collar people. Most of them were white collar executives. Most of them the company was paying for them to be there, and I, Rhea, my wife, and I were paying $5,000 for me to be there, and also my son was sitting beside me and paying $5,000 for him to be there. So we put out $10,000 out of our pocket, But what I realized was, why is nobody focused on the blue collar world? Why in 20 years had I never heard this type content? So that's what led me to get behind it. I know when I put blue collar on my shirt or on a book title, that blue collar folks know what that means. It means that's for them, and that's why I created the Blue Collar Leadership brand. I wrote the first Blue Collar Leadership book in 2016 to really kick off that brand.
Yeah, I love that, Mac, because sometimes, and I come from the warehouse and distribution center industry. Sometimes some people in that area, that labor force, feel slighted, right? Like sometimes they will feel neglected, feel slighted, and some of those people are extremely talented. In fact, many of them are. They just may have not developed it yet, right? They didn't get their 7 habits book. They didn't have that epiphany. And so if you put some time and care and feed into them, they can really blossom, right? And I'm sure that I think you really hit on something with what you're doing, and I respect it so much, because I know there's so many people out there, as well as that can and will benefit from this type of talk and this type of spotlight that you put out there.
Yeah, it's a privilege. I get to meet those people all over the country and beyond the country, and it's pretty
Yeah.
cool, especially when I discover someone like me that hadn't heard it, and then they just light themselves on fire. I love meeting those folks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's invigorating, isn't it? When that happens, when you feel like you really connected with someone and you see them change. They were going one way, and then they went another way, and they never turned back.
Yeah.
I love that when that happens. So now let me ask you this question. So like I, I I saw on the website that you have worked in many different industries. I shouldn't say worked in, but you have spoken at events in many different industries. But do you have main ones that are your bread and butter that you always sort of come back to, or are you just anywhere that there is a blue collar labor force or a blue collar culture or world? I'm there. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, actually, our biggest segment of our business is construction industry.
Yeah.
And I don't chase clients. I don't cold call. I don't even follow up with clients I got. I tell them they call me to start with, and I'm happy they can call me anytime they want, but I'm never going to bother them because they're busy. And that's just my model. I don't like bothering people. I don't spam people. I don't do email
Yeah.
lists and blasts and all that sort of stuff. I ain't into all that. I don't like it myself. And so I don't do it to others, but manufacturing actually probably the smallest segment. They won't stop production, to do any development. That's probably why I never had any. Probably why I don't get to go in many organizations, although I do sometimes. But I speak at white collar organizations. My wife and I had the privilege of speaking at Yale University on blue collar leadership, innovation,
That's
and
great.
talent development. And I never saw that one coming. I had to get on Google at the time, find out what state Yale was in. I had no idea. I
Yeah.
just waited to
Well,
be there. But yeah, I mean, our clients, people say, who's your perfect client? It doesn't matter the industry. It doesn't matter if they're white collar either. We'd speak at, like I said, some white collar organizations, but probably 90% or more is blue collar organizations, and it doesn't matter what kind. But what does matter is the people who bring me in. The majority of them care about their people. They don't
yep.
call me and talk about ROI because they don't care about ROI. They care about
Yep.
people. If somebody calls me
Yep.
and starts talking about ROI, I know they care about money and they ain't necessarily worried about the people because that's the two
Yep.
kind of people that call me: the ones that never mention ROI and the ones that won't quit talking about it. And the ones that won't quit talking about it, I know already they're not my client. They're trying to check a box and do all this stuff. People who care about their people, want to help them have a better life at home and at work. That's the people that I want to do business with.
Yeah. I mean, people shouldn't have a ROI. I mean, I know sometimes they do in businesses, but machinery has a ROI, right? Like technology has a return on investment. Like people is an infinite. They can have an infinite return. I mean, how do you measure that? I mean, it's as human beings. So, yeah, I can appreciate that. Now I follow you on LinkedIn, Mac, and you post a lot on LinkedIn, and I do, and you give a lot of good nuggets of wisdom and knowledge. And one of the things that I've seen you talk about a lot on LinkedIn posts and on your website too is that you don't only just focus on blue collar employees, but a lot of times you will also focus on the people that are leading them, right? So you really got to hit both sides of the coin there, which I appreciate because you have to have both of them for this work, right? It has to kind of be an agreement, and that has to work. So is that a philosophy that you developed over time? Have you always kind of been that way, or did you morph into that the more and more into this you got and the more experience you got? Because I really like that concept of getting both sides and closing the loop there. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's really a holistic approach, and I learned all that from those 11,000 plus hours, facilitating Kaizen events, in different. I get a different team every week, a different team of 6 to 8 people. Different. A lot of times they didn't know each other. They definitely didn't know me. They didn't like change. Didn't like the boss. A lot of times they didn't like me. Didn't like the last consultant. So I walk into a hostile environment most of the time on Monday morning, and that was my
Yep.
team. And all the stuff I teach and talk about, I didn't have weeks and months and years. I really only had about 4 hours to get, to build trust, because the first 4 hours on Monday morning, I was talking about personal growth and leadership development. I wasn't worried about the process. I was sharing all this stuff that I shared to just help them as people and tell them some of my stories and things like that, and make a real connections and get, take the sword out of their hand and let them know that I'm just here to help them help themselves. And I know what they're dealing with at the top and on the side and, all around them, and forget about all that stuff and let's go make your job better, but also take away some nuggets that's going to help your life be better. And so as a consultant, they hired a lean manufacturing consultant to improve the processes, but what they got was a surrogate leader, because I was
Oh,
leading the
yeah.
owners. I was leading every level of every level. I mean, I was all up and down the org chart, all the way to the bottom, left and right at every level. And because I had to make it happen. It's stuff that I teach. I teach high impact leaders take responsibility. So I don't care what's going on in the organization back in those days. When I walk in, I'm the leader. I'm responsible. It's up to me to make that week be awesome. And I got 5 days and these people don't like me and all that stuff I said a minute ago. And usually by lunchtime on Monday, we're good to go. And then now we can learn some stuff about process improvement. We can analyze the current state. We can come up with a future state and then actually implement it on Thursday. I didn't just develop a plan with people when I was doing lean consulting. we did develop a plan, but on Thursday was execution day. We went from current state to future state on Thursday, however long that took. Moving machines, moving airlines, gas lines, water lines, renting big forklifts to move heavy equipment, and just sometimes
Yep.
relaying out an entire workplace. And then on Friday we validate it to the plan, and then I'm gone and to do it again somewhere else the next week. So that I never had a bad team, and I'm sure you heard of Jocko Willink, and everybody
Yep.
says this that understands high impact leadership. Again, that's what I call it. Anybody who knows what that is, they always know there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And just because they're a bad leader doesn't mean they're a bad person. I mean, you can be a phenomenal person and be a terrible leader. And
Yep.
so when I say bad leader, doesn't mean I'm talking about they're a bad person. Most of the time, these bad leaders have never had any leadership development. And
Yep.
when I say you put it up, Ben, and appreciate you sticking that up on the scroll earlier. One of my taglines is helping leaders engage the front line to improve the bottom line. And people who don't know how to lead well think that means I come in and fix the people, the workers, and I help the workers to lead themselves well, but then I also help the leaders lead themselves well. But the leaders also have an additional responsibility, which is leading those around them well. But the way that I teach leadership, I teach the same principles to everybody. If you're an entry level person, you need to lead yourself well. You need to lead your team well. You need to lead your leader, your boss well. So I tell different stories, but I teach the same principles, because leadership principles are leadership principles. It doesn't matter how old you are, if you're at home, if you're at work, no matter where you live in the world, and what kind of industry. That part didn't matter. The principles are the same. The practices are different.
Yep. And I think that's really true. And I think a lot of times, depending on maybe the experience level of the leader or the age or whatever, sometimes people feel insecure, like I should know this, right? Like I'm in charge, so I should know all of these things. And they're uncomfortable sort of raising their hand and saying, yeah, I need some leadership training, but that's okay. I mean, that's what we do, right? Like no one expects people to have all the answers. Like leadership is a skill. It's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's repetition. And the best leaders, I think, are open and willing to learn that and grow. And if you have a blue collar employee or team of employees and they see and authentically feel that their leader is willing to learn and grow and engage with them, God, I mean, they'll bend over backwards for them, Mac. You know what I mean? Because they've spent their life with so many leaders that just are not that way. They come in, they want to give orders, they want to fix everything, and they're so used to that. And I mean, they're gonna do it, right? But you're never gonna get to that next level, I think, in performance in doing that. And those are the things that happens when you're not out there. I mean, like when you're not managing, when you're not leading, when that employee's working 40, 50 hours a week, you don't see them for 47 of them, 46 of them. What's going to motivate them then what's going to make them want to do their best? And I think, like you said, Mac, it's those investments that you made in them emotionally and as a mentor up front to really make them feel like you understand them and you're there for them and you have their best interests at heart. So I love that. I love that. That's your philosophy.
And I'd like to say you just triggered something that I always talk about. Not on always. There's too much. There ain't never enough time to talk about all the stuff. But you just said something that I often say when it hits me like it did just then. But I tell the teams when I'm speaking. Usually I'll mainly only tell this when the leader's on the front row learning with them. Being a student, a top leader, sometimes the owner of a company, or sometimes it's the CEO, and they got the entire workforce there, maybe hundreds of them out there together. And I always tell when that's happening, I can tell it without, rupturing a relationship with the owner, because the owner's sitting there. But I'll tell him, I say, when we come and speak, there's usually three types of leaders. The ones that bring us in to go fix the people, and we don't ever see those leaders. And there ain't many of those, but sometimes we get those people to hire us, and that's okay. We still want to help the people that are in front of us, but we know it's not really going to stick and last if the leader is really not involved. And they don't have to be, and they are busy and doing other things. But one type of leader don't want to be. That's the kind I'm talking about. The one that's not there because they don't want to be, not because they're busy or something. That's okay. That's excusable. They got a lot going on, but the top leader can be in there if they want to be, because we meet those kind all the time. The other kind is the kind that comes and stands in the back of the room, crosses their arms like this, kind of looks around, see what everybody's doing, and
Yeah.
how they receiving what they got me in there to deliver. And then the third type, which is the high impact leader, they come in, sit down on the front row and pull out the notebook, and they take more notes almost than anybody in the room. And they don't even turn around and look to see what anybody else is doing. They there to learn.
Yep. I mean, I always hate to stereotype people, but when I see over my career, when I've seen a new crop of new young leaders, if the one that is like you mentioned, that is taking notes, that is willing to humble themselves, that is going to be engaging, right? That doesn't have all the answers, but they learn. I look at them, I'm like, that person is going to be a senior ops leader at this company. I guarantee you, if I come back here 6 or 7 years from now, that person is going to be a senior ops leader or a general manager. You can just tell it. You can just tell it right away. You know what I mean?
They are another one. They
Yeah.
they might bump their head up against the leadership lid and have to go somewhere else, but they'll go somewhere else. But
Yeah.
if they got leaders willing to lead them, yeah, they're gonna do
Yep.
exactly that. They'll go as high
Yep.
as those leaders in that company will let them go. And those kind of people, though, as soon as they hit the lid, they don't get frustrated and just say if can't beat them, join them. They go find them another place to grow because
Yeah.
they want to grow.
And sometimes this happens too. This kind of just came to me, but the higher up you go in an organization, particularly fulfillment centers and distribution centers, the more complex and layered and sometimes political it can come. That's just happens. That's just the nature of the beast.
Everywhere.
But yeah, and that's everywhere. But I think if you're the type of person that has the trust and the respect of all of your blue collar labor force, right? They almost take care of everything for you. And now you have time, right? You have bandwidth to do the other type things that you need to do now in your senior level position because they're handling and everything. They're honored and they're proud to do that. That's the golden leader, I think, in my opinion. You can see that right away. And I've always tried to be that way, and I think others should try to be that way too. Because in this industry, maybe not in others, right? If you're, Wall Street or this, but I'm not on Wall Street. We're not on Wall Street, right, Mac? I don't know how that world works, right? We know how this world works, and that's how you want to be. I think that's the
good
ticket
stuff.
to the top. Yeah, in this
Absolutely.
one. So, all right. So let me ask this because you hinted at this a little bit earlier, and I saw it on the website. So John C. Maxwell, a lot of people have heard of John C. Maxwell. He's a best-selling author, incredible books out there. If you have not read John C. Maxwell, you definitely should that. But you have received a license to teach his best-selling content. What's the backstory behind that? How does that work? I didn't really know that was a thing. You tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, he's still doing that, and I don't know how much it costs now. Like I shared with you before, it was $5,000 back in 2012 when I chose to be a part of that. But anybody could do it. He had something back then called the John Maxwell team. It's something else now, but it's the same thing. But anyway, those first 4 years, I just was reading all kind of stuff, and somewhere during that first 4 years from 2008 to 2012. I'm reading all kind of books, and when I'm leading those lean Kaizen events, I'm taking my backpack in. I'll have like 8 books in there. A couple of ones I always had with me: 7 Habits, Speed of Trust. Those were always in there, and some other ones. And then one day, one of the lean coordinators, she brought me a book. She said, "I got you a book, Mac." I said, "What is it?" And it was a John Maxwell book. I can't remember now. I think it was a 17 Laws of Teamwork, but it could have been the 21 Laws of Leadership. She gave me both of them within a week, and I can't remember the day which one I got first. But anyway, so I dove into. I mean, I read it. I was out there for a week, and so I had 4 nights. I read whatever it was. Whenever any of those people I was leading would give me a book, I read it quick because I want them to know I appreciate them giving me a book. And just like you mentioned the book we're gonna talk about later, I'll finish that thing in 24 hours because it mattered to me because you thought I had read it and I hadn't read it. So I made sure I have read it now. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. So I quit drinking alcohol in June of 2012. As soon as I quit doing that, I had to find something to do with my time, my money, my head feeling good on the weekends instead of being drunk, pulling around. And I wasn't a daily drinker. I was a binge drinker, the party drinker, the tailgater, the holiday drinker. Hunting season comes, I didn't drink for 6 months, and I was focused on hunting then. But leadership fills my tank. I don't need anything else anymore. But my values changed, and slowly that fell away in 2012. So that happened in June. June, I quit drinking alcohol, quit using profanity in August when I went to the John Maxwell training. But in between that, uh, I was basically sitting at home one morning, Saturday morning. They, Usually I was at the pool. We had a pool, hot tub, nice house that we made like a staycation place. And that's what I did when I was home after consulting all week, come home, party all weekend, and get up and do it again the next week. And this Saturday morning, I changed, my whole life was changing. So I'm sitting around looking at leadership stuff on a Saturday morning, and something about a day about books from John Maxwell popped up, probably on Facebook or LinkedIn somewhere. And I saw that. I was like, I like all this stuff. I ain't got any books, hadn't written any of my own books at that time. And I was like, I need to write some books so I can go out and speak and talk about this stuff, because I can't do anybody else's stuff. I got to do my stuff. So
Yeah.
I signed me and my son up for that. I think it was $800 a piece for a day, a full day of John talking about how he writes books. He had his publisher there. He had his ghostwriter there, Charlie Wetzel, I think is his name. And it was awesome. But the first break, right before break, they talked about the John Maxwell team, and you can, pay to join it, and you get access to, at that time, it was 5 of his books, and you can teach them and get paid on them. One time fee, you get to go to a 3-day live conference as part of it. And it's not
Cool.
you don't have it official until you go through the 3-day live conference. And,
Yeah.
and, they do speaker training, coaching training, all kind of stuff like that. And I didn't even care about any of that. When I heard that you could teach from John's book and get paid for it, and you didn't have to do nothing kind of, but, give him credit basically. And they give you
You're in.
and they give you downloadable workbooks and, all this kind of stuff. So you can go do it. I went and talked to the folks at break, and I had to make sure. I couldn't believe it was true. I kept going round and round with them, like, is all this stuff like for real? And I had
Too
to
good to be.
think about
It's
it,
like
'cause I didn't
candy
trust
for
these
you.
people. I didn't trust them, and because
Yeah.
I didn't know them. But by lunchtime, I did, and I went over there and signed me and my son both up, and we dove off in it, and we went down to that conference. I actually raised my hand and accepted Christ with John that weekend. I didn't never see that
Good for
coming.
you.
I had no idea that was about to happen. And
Good for you,
but
man.
we were there on a week. One of the days was Sunday, and he always does a service when he's doing a training
Yeah.
on Sundays. So I went in early to that, and me and my son both, and pretty much everybody. People were there from all around the world, getting certified
Yeah.
as a John Maxwell team member. They called it back then. And he got done doing his service, and he said, if say a prayer or whatever. So I had enough integrity by then, even, and respect for people. Even though I wasn't a Christian, I was agnostic. I would still bow my head and, respect the folks doing a prayer. And he said, if you're not a follower of Christ, look up at me. And my integrity had grown enough then, I couldn't play like I was and keep my head down. So my son was actually in front of me, and he raised his head, and he was, I think 21 then.
Mhm.
I think he was 20. He raised his head up, and, he can't see me. He didn't know I had raised my head up because he was looking at John. And John, said a little bit of stuff and said, if you want to, accept Christ into your life, raise your hand, repeat after me. And my hand went up, my son's hand went up in front of me, and that was pretty awesome. And then he gave us both, us and about 100 and some other people, a leadership. He's got a John Maxwell leadership Bible where he talks about a lot of these principles come from the Bible. And
Yeah.
so he's got it mixed in with his secular teaching, mixed in it, as a text box throughout the Bible, showing where he gets his principles from. But
Yeah.
I don't talk a lot about my faith. I do in one of my books, the one on transformation, because it led me to a lot of my transformation. And that's why when I left there that day, before that day, if I said a 1-word sentence, it had 2 words of profanity. And
Mhm.
and for me, it's one way. I pulled over and told my son Eric on the way out of the parking lot when that event was over. I said, you know what's going to be because I was this was 2012, so I was 40, 43. I think my birthday was somewhere. One of them days we were there was my birthday actually, and I think I was 43, and I told my son, I said, you know what my competitive advantage is going to be in this space, because I just heard about this stuff a couple of years ago, and now I'm down here at the Maxwell training with these people who've been living it all these years and spending money going to all kinds of training. I said, my competitive advantage is going to be the degree that I live what I teach. And doesn't
Mhm.
mean I'm perfect, but that's what drives me to really try to be a good role model. And I said, John won't ever know it. And he probably still don't know it. I mean, even I talked to him some, but I never told him. But
Yeah.
that was just a commitment. He was going to let me use his name and spread his message and just say his name. I needed to not be using the language that I was using. I had already quit drinking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, this is not going to work. This is not on brand. This is not, I don't want to be this no more.
not for me, and I'm judging other people.
I've decided I want to be something different, and I think once you make that decision, once people make that decision and they make it, only they can make that decision, right? It can't be your friend or your parents. It has to be you. Once it comes from you, I think it's the most powerful when they do that. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that story. Great story.
I tell people I got enough work to do judging me. I'm just trying to make sure I'm trying to get better. There's a quote from Michael Josephson: "It'd be great for your folks if I worked in a company, it'd be on the wall in the break room. It might be on the wall in the hallway up front and in the meeting rooms." But it's a quote from a guy named Michael Josephson. He's got a book by the same title, and he basically says, "You don't have to be sick to get better." And
That's right.
that's
That's right.
powerful. A client actually shared it with me he heard it from Kirby Smart, and I like to give credit when I can remember where it come from. So I just looked it up, see where it might have come from. And it was actually a book by that title from Michael Josephson. He might have spoken wherever Kirby Smart was at when he heard it. I have no idea, but I just appreciate my client sharing it with me. I ain't never forgot it since he said it that day.
I like that. I like that. I like Kirby Smart too. I'm a Georgia fan, so just throwing that out there in the audience in case the audience is listening. But anyway, so let me ask this question now. Now I've seen you post about this, and this is a concept that I think is very applicable in the world of warehousing and distribution, and that is when people get promoted into a leadership role for the first time, they usually will get some type of handbook. They know what the metrics are they have to hit and all the things that come with that. But how they lead, I think sometimes they realize is up to them. It comes from their values, what they believe in, and how do you draw that out in people? Because I know you've mentored a lot of new leaders, and I know you firmly believe in this concept. But what's your thoughts on that, and how do you kind of get people to really take ownership of their values, determine their effectiveness and their style as a leader?
Yeah, I approach it really using the principle that I learned from John. John's known for saying leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And pretty much that's how I get anybody to buy into anything that I'm talking about is I help them understand, I ask them some questions first. And let me just say, if you don't mind, I don't know if you're going to have Carlos Cody on your show or not. I hope you do, because he's phenomenal. And he's in the warehouse industry.
Yeah.
He uses a lot of my stuff. I've been mentoring him for a long time. And
I am.
He's going to be a phenomenal guest for you.
Yeah.
But he can answer all these same exact questions really good and put it exactly into your world. But, his stories will be different than mine, but the principles can be exactly the same. But how I get people to do it, one thing when I first get going, no matter who I'm talking to, it doesn't matter if it's top leaders, a room full of CEOs, a room full of HR people, a room full of entry-level people, Boy Scouts we talked to the other week, here locally in town, doesn't matter who's, because it's principles, they're all the same. So to get people to really buy into all the stuff that I talk about, I got to get them nodding and agree and telling themselves a story. Because one thing I say when we start speaking in most places is I tell the crowd, you ain't going to believe a word we say the whole time we here. You're not going to believe nothing we tell you. I said, you're only going to believe what you tell yourself about what we say. If you agree, you're going to say what we saying is the truth, and then you're going to agree with it. If you disagree, you're going to think it's a lie, and you ain't going to agree with it. But until you decide, what we say doesn't even matter. It's what you say about what we say. So I want people to tell themselves the story that their life will be better if they have more influence. And the way I do that, I ask them some questions. I'd say, you think will your life be better at home or at work? Wherever you want to frame it, doesn't make any difference. Most people take this stuff home as, when I'm talking about it, I'm talking to it usually at work, but they're listening for home because they start figuring out, hey, this stuff helps me at home much as it does at work. And I'll ask them, will your life be better if you have more options or less? What do you think everybody says, Ben?
More.
It don't matter who they are, where they are, how old they are. It's common sense. All this stuff I talk about is common sense. And they say more. I said, well, you think you have more options in life if you got more influence or less influence?
More
Same way, right? more influence. Everything you want out of life, is it easier to get if you got more influence or less influence? You know, I play this question game and everybody's nodding just like you. Everybody knows because everybody already knows the answer. Now, I tell them already when I start talking, you already know the answer to everything I'm going to talk about today, but I'm going to try to frame it and ask some rhetorical questions that's going to help you value it at a higher level so that you say, I need to work on intentionally increasing my influence instead of accidentally. Cause it's like going to the gym. You know, if I just go to the gym every day and don't really do nothing while I'm there, I really ain't going to get any stronger. I'm not going to get any fitter. I can walk around the gym for 2-3 hours, but it's the same way walking through life without focusing on intentionally developing your influence. You're missing out. It'd be like,
Yep.
Rhea and I tell them, it'd be like, you know, one example, I try to get people out of their space so they can comprehend this real easy and real quick. I say, anybody in the room speak Japanese? Most time, nobody does. I say, what if we went to Japan and we just said, we're going to live there from now on, but we're going to refuse to learn the language. We just, you know, if we learn a little, it'll be okay, but we ain't focused on learning the language. We just going to try to get by versus somebody who goes there before they even get there, they're learning the language. You know, you talk about people getting promoted. I'm learning how to lead before I even get promoted, right? So now I'm learning how to speak Japanese before I even get to Japan. So when I get there, I got a head start. And then now I'm in Japan. I'm surrounded by people who know Japanese and they're speaking it. It's written everywhere, and I'm trying to learn it from all the the sources I can. And you think I'm gonna leave the person that's not even trying in the dust? That they ain't even heard Japanese till they get over there. I'm gonna leave them in the dust. You know, personally, professionally, especially professionally. And I say, you know, learning leadership's the same way. And I describe leadership is influence, like John. It's a synonym. It's the same thing. A lot of people don't know that who don't study leadership. So when I'm saying you need to learn leadership, I'm saying you need to learn how to increase your influence. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a boss, if you're not a boss. It doesn't matter if you work in quality or safety. Nobody reports to you. It doesn't make any difference. It actually matters more then because you don't have any formal authority. All you have is your moral authority. People follow you if they want to, not because they have to. And so that's why I try to drill down to the root cause value is I value having more influence. That's until they value having more influence, anything else that I say doesn't even matter. It's because, but everybody wants more influence. So once you can get them to nod their head and then you can take them down that path and ask them some more questions, then they start getting interested and then they want to read the books and they want to listen to the podcast and they want to apply this stuff in their life.
Yeah, I think, and this is what I tell people sometimes, Mac. I say, just the hardest part in all of this is just getting the boat out of the harbor. If you can get your boat out of the harbor, right, when it's heavy and you got to untie the rope and you got to push it, it's awkward and everything. If you can get it out of there, driving it on the high seas, that's easy. I mean, it might look tough, you know, because all that, but that's really the easy part. The real, true, honest to goodness, hard part is getting it out of the harbor and slugging it out and deciding that you're going to do that. But if you can do it, then you can build that momentum up and up and up and up. And then the more that you get into the good stuff, the more it just starts to fuel your fire and off you go. But I think it's that initial phase where people have to make that decision. They have to tell you and admit, yes, I want influence, right? I've agreed that is the way to improve in my leadership journey. I need to have better influence. And then you're like, well, here is the way to do it, right? Like, this is the path that I can take you on. And now that you're ready. But if they're not willing to step into the boat, if they're not willing to leave the harbor, it don't matter. You know what I mean? It don't matter how much knowledge you have. I mean, knowledge and doing is not the same thing. Knowledge and deciding and doing is where you want to be. That makes the difference there.
Yeah. You ever heard about, John Maxwell's dad is Melvin Maxwell. He passed away a while back, but he used to ask John a riddle when John was a little boy, and John shares it and writes about it. I write about it in my book, you know, give John credit for hearing it from his dad credit, because that's where he got it from. But I end most of my speeches with something that you just said. I don't know if you've ever heard this. If you hadn't, you'll like it. He always says 5 frogs sitting on a log, 4 decide to jump off. How many are left on the log? And when I do that at a living room, especially if it's a small room, a lot of people say 1. I said, let me ask you again. And this is not a trick question. So let me tell you that up front. So 5 frogs sitting on the log, 4 decide to jump off. How many are left on the log? And I say, I'm giving you a hint right now. It's 5. And people will be looking. I say, you wondering why it's 5 and not 1? Because 4 decided to jump off. They hadn't jumped yet. And I always end by saying, if you heard me or Rhea say something today and you decided to do something different, if you thought about something nobody even know that you thought about, or you read something, or you had a conversation with somebody else, or there's some more speakers later, or somebody come before us, and you decided to do something different because of your time here today, I got some leadership truth for you. And I heard this from John too. And he says this: leadership truth is kind of like a surgeon's scalpel, might sting, might hurt, but
Yeah.
it's meant to help. And I'll say, here's a little leadership truth for you. If you decide to do something different today, you ain't done nothing yet. You just thought
Yep.
about it. Thinking about it ain't
Yep.
gonna do you any good until you take action.
You must do. And another thing too, and I give this advice to people all the time, the more you send it, right? The more you commit, the more you go out there, the farther down you get, the less and less crowded it becomes. It's very crowded right there at the starting line with everybody deciding, what am I going to do? Like, it's very crowded there. You have tons of competition, everybody the same. You start really sending it and getting down that road, you find that it's much less resistance because not much traffic on the extra mile. You know what I'm saying? As
Traffic out there, it's a pretty open road.
but that's much easier said than done, Mac, though. And that's why I'm glad that there's people like you out there that can really be the spark and that people need, right? And coach them and speak in a language they understand to send them off on their way. Now, ultimately, they have to walk their walk. Everybody has to walk their own walk, but that initial phase, if there's people like you that can help in that initial phase, I think that's great. And I think people will really benefit from that. So now you mentioned Rhea, right? So I'm not going to do this whole show and not bring her up, Mac, because I don't want to get any hate mail. But Rhea is fantastic too. So I watched some of her videos of speeches that she gave, and she's fantastic. Now I would love to get her on the show too, by the way, Mac. Just sort of throwing that out there. But what's
She'll get
what's
there.
what's the energy been like with you and your audience? Because you do things with her, and are you guys always very aligned on how you're going to present something or how you're going to convey something to the audience, or do you have some kind of creative differences sometimes? And then how does it get ironed out in the end when you go give your speeches together?
Yeah, we always know what we're gonna talk about. We don't ever know what we're gonna say. That's the truth. I even share that with the audience sometime. I say, I bet you guys wonder what we're gonna say today. Me too.
I don't know either.
But we speak authentically, like you talked about being authentic early. We don't script anything. I can't do any scripted speeches. It ain't gonna happen
Yeah.
if I got to do it. I don't even like PowerPoints. Some people want us to have them, and when we do it, we don't have many slides, and ain't much on any of the slides, and it just messes me up. But yeah, us speaking together. Rhea's background's actually healthcare administration. She was a director for regulatory affairs and compliance in a large hospital, and she's trying to get doctors and nurses. And main issue was the doctors. There's a lot of times there's a lot of ego and stuff, and she has no authority over all these people. She worked in a 2,500, 3,000 person hospital, and it's kind of like lean, kind of like quality, kind of like safety. You're
Yeah.
responsible for everybody doing the stuff, but nobody reports to you. Hardly. You got a little team sometimes, so you got to have influence or you're ineffective. So all this leadership stuff matters even more when you're responsible for a function like that. So
Definitely.
when we speak, it's much more dynamic. It's much more entertaining. She's kind of a blue collar girl, but she worked in the white collar world, for most of her career, was in medical field and that sort of stuff. But I mean, when I met her, she was raising and selling horses and doing a lot of farm kind of work, and she's probably done some stuff to some chickens and things like that in her life, on the farm. The blue collar folks do, the white collar folks don't do when they making a meal.
Well, I think it's good that she's sounds like she's sort of comfortable in both sides, right? And I think that would help in the position where you're in, where I kind of gotta be a liaison between the blue collar culture, which I understand very well, and a white collar too, because we talked about this in the beginning. They both need to be simpatico, right? Like they both need to be together. So having a background and a comfort in both of those, I think, is a huge competitive advantage for you and her as you're traveling around the country. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very unique. I mean, we are unique because we neither one of us need the other one to be on the stage. We both can make it happen without the other one. But so we toss it back and forth, and I interrupt her, and she interrupts me, and I interrupt her a whole lot more because she triggers everything in me to want to come out.
You-
So just like
Yeah.
just like you're doing when you're talking on here, I can talk for days just listening to you talk. I want to stop you every 2 seconds and tell 2 hours worth of
Like,
stories about something. But we just got invited. We kicked 2025 off. We started out in Cancun, Mexico, speaking to a window depot with all their what they call them. I can't even remember. I call them owners, but they're not owners. But from around the country, and we spoke to them. And this year, 26. I mean, next year we'll be speaking in Puerto Rico for the reason that you just said. They highly valued us speaking as a couple there. We'll be speaking to about 400 people, and a lot, about 75% blue collar, but about 25% white collar. And I speak to the white collar folks too. And but Rhea and I, she don't sound like me. I tell everybody I'm bilingual. I speak English and country, and, and there ain't no doubt about it. She doesn't sound like me. She sounds like she speaks very properly and that sort of stuff. But she's a yeah, she's a huge asset, and she's got lots of books too. And some books a few of them we wrote together, and she's just phenomenal. But she does a lot of our background work. But she'll come on here, and again, we share the same principles. And again,
Yep.
most people when we speak, most people like our personal stories. Hardly anybody hires us to tell the personal stories because most of the people don't even in the space that we speak in. Most of the time, they ain't ever. First of all, they usually even hired speakers, much less kind of motivational speakers. And then they start hearing our story, like when I told you John Maxwell, my son was there with me and raised his hand, and we paid for him to go. From 15 to 19, that boy hated me. He didn't want nothing to do with me in his life. And when he was 17, I discovered that 7 habits. And when he was 19, my mom had told him, give me another chance because she had seen me transform. And then she had started reading all these books I was reading because she couldn't believe I was transformed. I was out of high school. I was in the Marine Corps in the infantry unit, and I was only in the reserves, not full blown. I just mainly wanted to go to Paris Island and prove wasn't nothing to it. And I graduated second with a meritorious promotion, so it wasn't that big a deal for me. But I was crazy. Like I liked the guns and the grenades and all the stuff, the knives and everything. And so I had a lot of unlearning to do to be the person I am today. That's why I know your values matter. Your choices
Yep.
matter, and it is a choice.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think it's just authenticity, Mac. I mean, I think if you're talking to a certain audience, they are going to be able to sense if you're authentic or not, if you're genuine or not. And if you come off as high score on the scale of authenticity, they're going to you're going to have their attention, right? They're going to want to hear you. They're going to listen to you because, not everybody can come off as authentic like that, Mac, but you really come off genuine and authentic. And I know that resonates with the people that you mentor and that you coach and that you speak to. So really appreciate that. So let me ask you this, where can people find, oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead, my friend.
I'll tell you that piece right there. What I always say to that is, when it comes to blue collar people and authenticity, those boys and girls, men and women, they can see in the dark.
Oh, absolutely.
They got night vision about when it comes to being authentic. I mean, that's one reason a lot of them don't like training. Whenever they think when we're coming in, they'll say later. We were in Kentucky the other week, and the guy at the end, he come up and told the owner of that company, what he said, sir, I didn't want to come to this. I was like, oh, another boring training. He said, but I sat in this all week long because it ain't what normal training is like. It's different. We're trying to move people. We're trying to cause them to choose to change their values. You talked about that earlier. That's our mission when we go in somewhere. It's not to teach somebody something. It's to motivate and inspire someone to look in the mirror and say, I need to change my values because I can't change their values.
Yep.
So anyway, I got
Yep. And that mess and how that message gets delivered, it needs to be tailored to that crowd. And you're the perfect person to tailor it to them. Obviously, Yeah. Obviously, you've had a lot of success, and you keep having success with that. And I hope that you have a lot more, Mac, because not everybody, there's not a lot of people out there that I know that are doing what you're doing in the space that you're doing it. And so I really appreciate it. I respect it. I want you to know that. Like, I really
I appreciate.
respect what you're doing a lot.
Thank you.
So now, where can people find out more about you? Now, I already mentioned your website and your podcast and everything, but where do you want people to go, and what do you got cooking up for 2026 and beyond maybe?
Yeah, first place they can call me on my cell phone. The one laying right here in front of me is 334-728-4143. I give it out everywhere. There's sometimes it's 3,000 people in the audience, and I usually go. I don't have it on me most of the time. I got to land somewhere up there. I'll pick it up and say, "This one right here, the one I talked to Rhea on. This is the phone number. You can call me, and it's on my website." And I mean, I've been paid $750 an hour to coach and mentor people back. Probably ain't done that since 2016, but I do it for free now. I don't want to talk about deer hunting and football and whatever people talk about besides leadership, personal growth. That's all I want to talk about. So anybody listening to your show today, they can call me on that number. They can go to the bluecollarleadership.com website. There's a link right there if they want me to call them at a specific time, so they know they'll get me and they'll be available. I'll be available. They can go, look on their calendar and put their phone number in. I'll call them back. And I just want to help people have a better life. And as
Yeah.
far as, and I am on LinkedIn, social media. I just started a little TikTok a minute ago. I got to learn all about that.
Okay.
I ain't looking forward to that because I got enough social medias and other junk to do because I do everything. Rhea and I do everything. There's nobody else. I don't want it to be anybody else. If it's too much to do, that I got to hire somebody that ain't going to get done because authenticity is one of my
Yep.
highly valued traits. That I mean,
Yep.
it's got to be authentic. You call, you're gonna get me, or either I might call you back. You ain't gonna get somebody else. And
Yep.
and and that's supply and demand's gonna take care of things. We just raise our rates or whatever, and till we ain't busy, and we'll ride there for a while. If we get too busy, we raise our rates again, and just supply and demand. And as far as 26. We're going to start off in Puerto Rico, talking to that group. Real excited about
Cool.
that. She just started in the last few weeks. She's creating a lot of blue collar leadership merch. You can go on our store and see that. She's creating, we come up, I'm sure somebody has it somewhere. We ain't been able to see that it's protected, but it's something I've been saying forever. The blue collar workforce is the backbone of America. And we got that on some shirts and got a flag behind the text. And she's making today. She made 4 or 5 different shirts. One's got a bulldozer. One's got like a lineman climbing up, and one's got a pipe wrench and a hammer crossed. And she's going to do a tractor, for the different trades and different jobs that people do. And that's something we're doing. And through our books, we got like 35 books. So and I would share with the audience. You can go preview my books. I do kind of like try before you buy. I don't like scamming people. I don't want somebody to spend a penny with me that don't want to. So they can go to bluecollarleadership.com/download, and they can preview the first 5 chapters and the entire outline of pretty much all of our books. And you don't have to put in an email to see it. You don't have to subscribe to anything to see it. It's just right there. You can actually download a PDF and share it with people. And actually, one thing that may be valuable to you and your folks, it's the5typesofleaders.com, the number 5, the5typesofleaders.com. Anybody can go there and watch a 2-hour video training. They get an 8-page downloadable workbook, fill in the blanks, actually get a certificate of completion. So if there's anybody out there who's wanting to climb the ladder, the leadership ladder, go take that course, get that certificate, and stick it in with your resume, or give it to your HR folks. Let them know you're growing and investing in yourself. And you will have to put some information there, but you won't have to put anything that's got anything to do with pay. But it's actually on a paid platform, so you got to fill in some of the required boxes. Still, we ain't gonna spam you. You ain't gonna get nothing from us. And we had one company the other week. Somebody must have did it, and then they had like 12 people signed up for it from some construction company in Rhode Island, I think it was. I can't remember. But it's some free value there. I give away lots of stuff, and I got my Blue Collar Leadership podcast, almost 500 episodes. All I do is mainly to teach people.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. I hope people look it up. I hope people listen to it. I've listened to many episodes, Mac, by the way, and you have some interesting guests on there. And I like listening to you, right, before coming on the show. But you also have some cool guests on there, and I like to hear people's perspective. And it's just it's real, right? It's real and authentic and gritty. And that's kind of how the Warehouse Underground is too. And I appreciate that part of it, man. I really like it. And thank you very much for coming on the show, my friend. I mean, I love chatting with you, right? And you think you want to, let's do part two. You want to come back for a part two? You want to do a part two in the future?
Yeah, man, we can drill down into a specific topic if you want, or talk about personal stories if you got value out of that. And I hope you'll come on my show, because I don't really,
Yeah.
I want to ask you all kinds of things and learn about your story and where you come from. And I love your background, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing such a professional job. I ain't got all this professional stuff. It's just me and whoever are talking and sharing some stuff. But if you'd like to come on, I'd love to have
Yeah.
you on.
Absolutely. I love to do stuff like that. I hear that from people sometimes. They're like, "Hey man, like who's the real Ben?" You know, like we see you on your podcast and you're asking the questions. We want to hear you answer the questions. So I would definitely like to do that. Well, maybe we can set that up for the future, Mac. I think that would be cool.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
my video. I don't know if you saw my on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel. I
Yep.
got a playlist called "Real People Getting Real Results."
Yep.
I do upload the audio on my podcast, but also the videos go there under that playlist. I got like 30 something now, and the only people that get on that show is on anything that I do is got to be somebody I know some kind of way. And like now I know you. You know, yesterday, unless you told me you listened to my podcast or read my books, that's all somebody's got to do is have a indirect or direct connection with me. And I'm happy to talk to them and let them share, let them help me motivate and inspire other people. So
Yeah.
we'll
I love it.
happen.
I mean, you never know who's listening, Mac. That's what I tell people. It could be the one guy or that one girl out there hears it, and you'll never know. And that's enough for me. You know, if you can make a difference in one person that hears what you say, or they like what you said, or you've made them the light bulb go off, that's why I do this. All right. And you know, so and I know you identify with that. I know you know what I'm talking about when I say
Good
that.
job.
So.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, you got it, my friend. So, Mac, I'll see you around. Look for Mac and I to do a part two in the future, and then I'll be appearing on the Blue Collar Leadership podcast myself in the future. So, thanks again, my friend. I appreciate it, Mac.
All right.
Take care. All right, guys, that concludes today's show. I love chatting with Mack Story. If you've not checked him out, Blue Collar Leadership, follow him on LinkedIn, call him on a cell phone. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anybody give their cell phone number out. I mean, he's very authentic and very genuine. So I hope that he finds nothing but success in the future. And I hope that everyone will follow him and reach out to him and use him as a resource and a mentor too, if they're in that space. As the Warehouse Underground goes, please sign up for the community. I almost have 230 people that have signed up for the community now inside their message boards, live shows. We have one coming up later. I think 2 weeks from now, we're doing another live show in there, which is pretty cool, and some good networking with the other members in there. Check out the Tiger Team show. Episode 7 should be released next week. I'm trying to get episode 7 out next week, but it may be 2 or 3 weeks from now. That's the show that I do with my co-host Jordan, which is funny, sarcastic, witty, all about things going on in the world of fulfillment centers and distribution centers. So I think you will like that show. If you work in that environment, you will get the stuff that we're talking about right away the first time that you hear it. And we think that we will like that. So thank you again for Mac. As this show goes, I will see you next week for episode number 32. God bless. Bye-bye.